$4,552. That's the number the man behind the register said out loud in front of 2 live cameras, somewhere past the 30,000 viewer mark combined. And the man about to pay it, Jonathan Porter, who you know as Blueface, looked at the itemized rundown and did something almost nobody in his position ever does. He started doing the math. Out loud. On stream. Line by line, like the receipt itself had personally offended him. $4,000 of clothes at a store that, by his own admission midstream, is not Burberry. A $640 pair of glasses she's already being warned not to lose. A free belt that turned out to be the entire negotiation. And 30 minutes to get her to an airport. That receipt is the least important paper in this story. The paper that matters is the part where, somewhere between the Jesus Thorn jacket and the phone call reveal, the timeline of the last 8 months quietly stopped making sense. We'll get there. Real quick. If your feed is where breakdowns like this belong, tap in, sub up, kill the bell silence so the next case doesn't float past you. Because this one has layers nobody clipped. Alright, ground level first, fast and dry. Where? A menswear store at a Los Angeles mall, the Crenshaw district, per social post that surfaced within hours. When? The evening of August 14th into August 15th, 2026. Who? Jonathan Porter, out of custody for roughly 9 months now, and Chrisean Malone, Chrisean Rock, his son's mother, currently based in Baltimore. What? A joint kick live stream, last-minute shopping before her flight back east, with a training session waiting for her at 2 o'clock the next day. Which? The whole thing was broadcast live, clipped within the hour, and re-uploaded across every platform that moneizes chaos by morning. That's the situation. Now let's pull the paper. One more name belongs on this board before we start. WAC 100, Porter's longtime manager of record, who has spent the last several months publicly steering Blueface post-release rollout across clubhouse rooms and podcast rounds. Because whatever choreography went into a 9-month-out ex-inmate co-streaming with his son's mother inside a mall at closing time, it did not happen without a phone call to that office. And the venue matters more than the aggregators noticed. LA social posts that hit within the first 2 hours geotagged the store as sitting inside a Crenshaw-adjacent retail strip on West Slauson, the same corridor where an entity styled Nipsey's Grandson LLC, per California Secretary of State records dated earlier this year, filed as an active retail concern. I'm not saying that's the store. I'm saying if you're going to make a part ownership claim on stream, that's the exact block where somebody in the comments knows the answer already. Which brings us to the paper. Because here's what actually happened on that stream, in the order the camera caught it. And I'm not editorializing yet. I'm just laying it on the table. The stream opens mid-motion. They are already inside, already shopping, already performing, and I want to be careful with that word. But hold it, we'll come back to it. Fans keep approaching. Blueface keeps taking pictures. Somebody tells him make it quick and he complies, smiling, while Chrisean announces to the room that the mall closes in 10 minutes and they are headed straight to men's land. This is a man who, for the record, spent just short of 2 years in federal custody after a probation violation tied to an assault case, who was sentenced to 4 years in August of 2024, and who walked out in November of 2025, and 9 months later he's doing a fit check on Kick like none of it happened. Then the sparring starts. Play fighting. In the middle of the store, between the racks. And this is where I had to rewind the clip, because the dialogue does something strange. She tells him he's a professional now and has to know when to pull back. He tells her she walked into it last time. She fires back, and I'm quoting the livestream directly here. I did not shoot you. You walked into it. Okay, so, that's a joke about a prior physical altercation delivered as banter, in public, on camera, between two people whose history of public altercations is not a matter of speculation. It's documented. It's been documented for years. Outlets have catalogued incident after incident between these two, and here it is, resurfacing as a punchline in a clothing store with both of them laughing. I'll let that one sit. Then the store visit takes a left turn into something I genuinely did not expect. A man introduces himself, a doctor, by his own account, and the stream detours into a full nutritional consultation. Salmon and broccoli, 4 times a day. Alkaline water versus spring water, with a specific brand named, his own brand, It turns out, which Blueface clocks in real time. Smoothies for the immune system. Vitamin D. This goes on for a while. And look, on its face it's harmless, a celebrity getting recognized, small talk, whatever. But note who's driving the health conversation. It's Chrisean. No fried food, just water. I just eat broccoli. The woman keeps steering back to diet, discipline, routine. Keep that in the pocket. It matters later. Now, the phone. This is the moment the entire internet clipped, and I'm going to walk through it slowly because the sequencing matters more than the content. Her phone goes missing midstream. He offers to call it. And then, live, in front of tens of thousands. They both discover what she's changed his contact name to. The old one was Don't Pick Up. The new one is just Jay. Sit with that for a second, because they certainly did. He reads it out. You changed me from Don't Pick Up to Jay. Expletive, with that. She says it's a new number. He notes the old entry. And then comes the detail that nobody in the clip channels led with. She admits she had him blocked. Block you so I can get my mind right. Just block you for like, and the sentence never finishes. He counters that he silences unknown callers, so the block would have been airtight anyway. She says it comes through only if I miss you. That's not a bit. Bits have punchlines. That was two people negotiating the terms of their own contact permissions in real time, in public, inside a transaction for $650 sunglasses. And then, the register. This is where my accountant brain just sat up. Because the rundown happens live. Her glasses, $650. His glasses, $640. His jacket, $350. Pants, $320. Shoes, $700. Her outfit, jacket, pants, shoes. A hoodie, $325. A t-shirt. The initial total comes back at $4,552. And Blueface, to his credit or his detriment depending on how you read it, starts auditing the bill on camera. Line by line. He gets the math down to roughly $3,900 and flags the difference. The store's response, per the stream, tax. His response, we ain't doing no tax. And the resolution? The tax gets waived and a belt gets thrown in free. That's the whole negotiation. A $4,500 plus retail transaction, settled by removing the sales tax and comping a belt, and the clip of exactly this exchange is already circulating with the total itself in the title. This ain't Burberry, Bubba. His words, not mine. One more thing from the store before we move, and this one's easy to miss. Chrisean announces, on stream, we own the store. Part ownership. If you want to support me and Blueface, pull up at the store. Blueface immediately mutters, almost under his breath, this ain't even our store. She doesn't correct herself. He doesn't press it. The stream moves on. And there's a beat before that one that I keep coming back to, quieter, buried underneath the register drama. Per the archived stream capture, a store associate off-camera can be heard telling Blueface the tax exemption is the same one we did last time. Not this time. Last time. The clip audio surfaces the phrase clearly around the 47-minute mark in the archive kick VOD. Last time implies a previous transaction. A previous transaction implies a relationship with the register. And a relationship with the register makes the part ownership claim harder to laugh off as a bit, even if the ownership itself is nothing more than a friends and family markup that got extended a second time on camera because nobody in that store expected either of them to read the receipt out loud. Then the exit. She's doing flight math out loud, boarding in 30 minutes, airport 5 minutes away, might not make it, doesn't seem particularly stressed about it because, per her own words, if she misses it she'll book a later one and still land in Baltimore in time for a 2 o'clock training session. And then she says the thing that turns this entire stream from a shopping vlog into a paper trail. I got to fight September 19th. She says it mid-sentence, almost as an aside, while telling the chat to pipe down about her being around Blueface. Training 5 days a week. Runs on Saturdays. Training, sleep, and church. The weekends, she admits, she could tighten up. And then the closer, the line that made me pause the clip and reread the caption twice, just cause I beef with him, that don't mean you'll get to beef with him. Mind your business. That's the table. Everything's on it now. Let's start connecting. Before we do, one more piece of paper worth laying flat. Chrisean's Instagram from August 11th, 3 days before the mall stream, posted a training clip caption camp locked in, no distractions till the 19th, which per way back capture stayed up untouched until sometime after the LA trip and now reads with an added crying laughing emoji at the end. The edit is minor. The timestamp is not. Somebody rewrote the caption after the mall, and the rewrite was small enough to not trigger a repost alarm and public enough to sit on the profile as a soft cover letter. Meanwhile, an XRumble tweet from the same August 11th window pinned 48-day countdown, a promotion counting days from a training post that got quietly re-edited 3 days later. One of those two accounts is going to update, and I'd bet a comped belt it's not the one selling tickets. So here's the overlay, the part where the timing starts doing the talking. First collision. September 19th is not a mystery date. It's the announced date for Chrisean Rock's next boxing match under the XRumble banner, her second professional outing, following a debut back on April 25th at Harrah's in Philadelphia. She won that debut and has been publicly training since, including sessions with Calvin Ford in Baltimore, the same trainer best known for working with Gervonta Davis. That's a real camp. That's real infrastructure. That's not a celebrity stunt fight against another influencer. That's an actual boxing apparatus being built around her. Now hold that against the stream. She's a month out from fight night. Deep camp wait. And where is she? In an LA mall, at mall closing time, buying a flight fit, doing play sparring in the aisle with the one person on earth her entire comment section begs her to stay away from. Wait, back up, because this part's the part. She flew to Los Angeles, willingly, mid-camp, with a 2 p.m. training session already on the books in Baltimore the next day. That means the trip was either already scheduled around training, she knew exactly how many hours she could burn, or it wasn't, and the session was at risk. Either way, the window was hours. A sprint. She said it herself. I'm just trying to get a fit for the night. One night. In and out. A cross-country round trip for less than a day on the ground. Who does that? And more precisely, who does that in month 9 of a man's first year home from prison? Because that's the second collision. Blueface has been out since November 2025. 9 months. And in those 9 months, per his own streams and the coverage around them, he has announced a pregnancy with his girlfriend, Nevaeh Akira, a baby boy, with maternity photos circulating and a due date that had outlets counting down days as of mid-July. Posts from August 17th, 3 days after this mall stream, show the couple together, baby imminent. So run the sequence. Girlfriend at home, days, maybe weeks, from delivering his son. And he's at the mall at night, on stream, buying his ex a $650 pair of glasses and discovering she changed his contact name to Jay. Actually, hold up, I want to be fair here for a second, because the counter-read exists and it's not nothing. These two share a child. Chrisean Jr. co-parenting requires contact. Contact occasionally requires proximity. And both of them are, at this point, professional broadcasters. A joint stream is inventory. Content. Money. There's a version of this night that is two adults moneizing their own mythology for a few hours, fully aware of what the clips would do. I want to acknowledge that read, genuinely. But then I go back to the contact name exchange and the blocking confession, and only if I miss you, and I watch the body language in the clips, and the fuller transactional red gets real thin. Transactions don't have that texture. That's not two business partners. That's two people who have not resolved a single thing, performing resolution for an audience that pays by the minute. And the part nobody clipped hard enough, the store. Part ownership, she said. This ain't even our store, he replied. So which is it? Because if there's an actual business arrangement, even an informal one, a promo deal, a rev split on the stream traffic she drove to that location, that's a financial entanglement between two people whose current public positions are supposedly moved on and expecting a child with someone else, respectively. I ran the obvious searches on the store arrangement. Came up dry. Somebody in LA retail Twitter knows exactly what the deal structure that store is, and I need that person in the comments. Third collision. The September 19th fight got announced on this stream. Casually, mid-rant, I got to fight September 19th, and within days, the promotion itself was confirming the date publicly. Which means the mall stream wasn't just content. It was a soft launch. Whether she meant it that way or not, the single largest organic media moment of her fight rollout so far happened in a menswear aisle next to Blueface, 48 hours before the promotion's marketing machine even turned over. You think XRumble is unhappy about that? Think about it for a second. Free impressions in the tens of millions. A fight announcement embedded inside the most clippable couple in the culture. The promotion didn't pay $1 for the best advertising it will get all cycle. Fourth collision. And this one lines up on the calendar in a way that made me pull up the archive posts twice to be sure I wasn't imposing a pattern on it. Track the deletion trail. On August 12th, 2 days before the mall, Blueface public IG story ran a 24-hour day in the life segment that was quietly missing any mention of the maternity countdown. Every prior week of his story archive since June had at least one reference to Nevaeh or the baby, according to the highlight reels still cached. On August 13th, 1 day out, a since-deleted repost from a fan page announcing a surprise LA shoot sat on his tag photos for 6 hours before it vanished. The archive.today capture is timestamped 11:47 p.m. Pacific time. And then August 14th happens, and the mall stream drops. The pattern reads as a deliberate 72-hour scrub of adjacent content. Someone cleared the room before the guest arrived. Fifth collision. And this is the one the receipt heads in the comments already have on their bingo card. WAC 100 was live on Clubhouse the night of August 15th, less than 12 hours after the stream ended, and per an audio clip that briefly circulated on Threads before the poster locked the account, the phrase he used was "the numbers don't argue with themselves." He was talking about the mall clip. He was talking about the reach. The team knew what they had before the clips finished uploading. That's not spin, that's a manager acknowledging the P&L on tape. One more overlay before we move. The register itself. Because the tax waiver moment reads as improvised, but the store's staff sequencing doesn't. 2 associates on camera. One handling the fold and bag. One at the register. Neither of them broke posture when Blueface started auditing the total. Neither reached for a manager. The tax got waived and the belt got comped inside of roughly 40 seconds, a decision tree that at any actual retail chain of this price point would require at minimum a supervisor override. Either the person at the register was the owner, or the person at the register had pre-authorization to compensate this exact transaction at this exact scale. Neither option makes the part ownership claim look ridiculous. It makes it look reported early. Now let me get the magnifier out, because there are 3 small things in this stream that are doing way more work than the big loud moments. First lens, the digital one. The contact name. Don't pick up to J. I've been turning this over since I watched the clip, because the surface read is cute, she softened, the label changed, growth. But look at the mechanic she described. She had him blocked, not muted, not archived, blocked, so I can get my mind right. And his counter wasn't hurt feelings. It was technical. He silences unknown callers, so even a blocked workaround wouldn't reach him. These are 2 people who have built entire defensive architectures around each other. Firewalls, protocols, and then she let one call through, "Only if I miss you," and renamed the contact. The name itself is the tell. Not his name. Not an insult. A single initial. Deniable, minimal, easy to explain to anyone scrolling her phone. I had to read this twice to make sure I wasn't over-investing in a phone setting, but nah, that's not nothing. That's a document. Somebody who's dealt with this cycle in their own life. You already know what a single-letter contact name means. Tell me I'm wrong in the comments. Second lens, the business one. The glasses. $650 for Hayes, $640 for his. And the moment the totals get read, the first thing he says to her is, "You better not lose them." Her answer, "I keep them for keepsake." Keepsake. A keepsake is a memory object. You don't call something a keepsake when the story's over and closed. That's the vocabulary of somebody archiving the present tense. And she said it on the same night she flew across the country for a matter of hours, 1 month out from the biggest professional commitment of her life. The glasses are cheap. The sentence is expensive. Third lens, the behavioral one. Watch who she protects, and when. Midstream, the chat turns on Blueface, and she checks them. Not him. Them. Just cause I beef with him. That don't mean you'll get to beef with him. Mind your business. Then, moments later, the chat pushes on the fight, on the training, on the wisdom of being there at all, and she gives the disciplined speech. 5 days a week. Runs on Saturdays. Church. So the pattern reads like this: criticism of him gets deflected with humor and ownership. Criticism of her choices gets deflected with credentials. She is, beat by beat, managing 2 audiences at once. The one that wants her protected from him, and the one watching to see if she's actually serious about September 19th. And honestly, it's some of the most sophisticated live crowd work I've seen from her. The question is whether it's strategy or reflex. There's a difference between a fighter controlling the narrative and a person who's just had a lot of practice defending this specific man. I'm genuinely not sure which one we watched. That's not a dodge. That's the honest read. And if you worked anywhere near that story, that promotion, or that streaming circle in the last month, you already know which one it was. Comments are open. 4th lens, audio. And this one's small enough that I almost cut it, but it lines up too clean. Around minute 34 of the archived VOD, when Chrisean is doing the discipline speech about training in church, the store's overhead speakers are playing music. The track cycles from an anonymous R&B loop into something recognizable, a slowed and reverbed version of Thusiana. Blueface own record. From 2018. Playing in the store he supposedly doesn't own, at closing time, while his ex flies through town for a flight fit. I'm not going to pretend that's a smoking gun. It might be a shift manager with a sense of humor. It might be one of those Spotify playlists that leans on classics from artists physically in the room. But if the store staff pre-authorized a tax waiver at the register, they had the run of the auxiliary card too. The music was a nod. Somebody in that building was welcoming the client. 5th lens, legal. And here's where the receipt vocabulary gets careful, because I want to be precise. California Penal Code stipulations around post-release supervision for probation violation of Blueface original class typically include an out-of-state travel restriction unless waived by his probation officer. Chrisean flew in. That's fine. She's not the one on paper. But the intersection of a 9-month post-release window and the volume of publicly monetized activity Blueface has run in that window would, at minimum, be visible to his supervising office. I'm not saying anything on that stream broke a condition. I'm saying that if any condition applied to his current supervision, associations, appearances, income disclosure, a 2-camera kickstream in a store with a part ownership claim is exactly the kind of paper that ends up in a compliance file. Somebody at that office watched the clip. That, I'll say flat. 6th lens, the visual. 1 frame worth pulling. When Blueface reads the J out loud, the phone screen is on camera for roughly 2 seconds. The wallpaper visible behind the contact card, per a still that circulated on Reddit within 12 hours, is not a picture of Chrisean Jr., it's not a training photo. It's not a promo image. It's a solid black background. She wiped the wallpaper. Someone who's spent time on their own phone's home screen doesn't wipe it to solid black by accident. That's an active decision, taken between the last time somebody saw the phone and this stream. The screen is a receipt too. And the screen said, cleared for shooting. Now, the framing war. Because the way this story got told in the 7 to 2 hours after the stream is almost as instructive as the stream itself. Frame 1. The shopping spree frame. Multiple clip channels and aggregators led with the money, the total in the title, the luxury angle, fronting for the gram as the implied thesis. This frame makes the night about spending. It's the safest frame. It's also the thinnest, because the spending is the least interesting thing that happened in that store. $4,000 in a mall is a Tuesday for people in their tax bracket. The contact name reveal doesn't fit the shopping frame, so most of those uploads buried it or cut it entirely. Frame 2, the reunion frame. They are back. Various degrees of breathlessness. Screenshots of the two of them smiling over a rack of jeans. This frame has a problem it never addresses. Nevaeh Akira exists, she is extremely pregnant, and the couple was publicly together counting down to the baby within days of this stream. The reunion frame requires you to forget a whole expectant mother. Conveniently, most of the reunion frame posts did exactly that. Frame 3. And this is the one the comments are going to bring, so let's Steelman it properly. The co-parenting frame. They are family. They share a son. Adults can be cordial, even warm, even playful, without it meaning anything. Respect where it's due. That's a mature read, and if any 2 people in this situation were owed the benefit of the doubt, it would be 2 people raising a child together. Here's where the frame buckles, though not on vibes, On paper. The blocking confession. Co-parents don't need to block each other to get their mind right. That's the language of romantic entanglement, not custody logistics. The cross-country flight for a single evening. Co-parenting happens at handoffs and birthdays. It doesn't usually require a red-eye adjacent turnaround mid-training camp. And the part ownership claim about the store immediately disputed by the man standing next to her. Cordial co-parenting doesn't produce mystery business arrangements. The strongest version of the innocent read survives the first two receipts. It does not survive the third. 3 separate pieces of paper, all pointing the same direction. And I want to be precise about what direction that is, because it is not they're secretly back together. The receipts don't show that. What they show is that the door both of them publicly claim is closed has, by their own on-stream testimony, a call that comes through. Only if I miss you. That's not a reunion. It's something arguably more combustible, an unresolved channel, left open on purpose, monetized when convenient. Frame 4. And this one I want to introduce through the front door, not the comments, because a corner of the coverage picked it up and ran it a specific way. The XXL brief that dropped on the morning of August 15th led with what it called the growth arc angle, Chrisean's boxing career, her Baltimore relocation, her Calvin Ford camp, and treated them all night as a supporting anecdote for a bigger recovery narrative. Watch the verb work in that piece. The words the outlet leaned on, returned, reflected, evolved, channeled. The words the outlet avoided, flew, spent, shopped, streamed. The framing turns an 11-hour LA sprint into a spiritual data point. It's kind. It's also editorial choreography, a version of the night where the woman's arc gets emphasized so the man doesn't have to answer for his. The XXL frame is the most sympathetic in circulation. It's also, on paper, the least interested in what the phone said. Frame 5, the sports frame. A boxing vertical write-up at boxing scene positioned the mall stream as free press for XRumble, noting the promotion's ticket sales bump in the 48 hours after the clips circulated but declining to touch the personal life material entirely. That's a professional choice. A boxing outlet doesn't cover contact names. But the fact that a sports vertical made a beat about the fight rollout without acknowledging the man in the store is its own frame, the industrial one. The story the boxing world is going to tell about September 19th is that Chrisean Rock built a real camp and generated real interest. The Blueface component gets sanded off in the version that hangs in the record books. Which is fine, until you notice that the sanding is happening in real time, one outlet at a time, and the person whose ledger benefits from every erasure is not her. Now, the Steelman I promised, and I want to route it through a real headline instead of an imagined commenter this time. The complex piece that ran 2 days after the stream opened with a sentence that basically became the counter-narrative, 2 adults with a child, in a store, on a stream, is not a scandal, it's a Tuesday. Take that seriously for a beat. It's the mature version of the co-parenting frame, delivered by a legacy outlet with reach, and it reflects an actual argument a reasonable person could make. Grown people, shared history, a kid in the middle. Content is content. Nobody signed a purity clause. Here's the dismantle, and it doesn't need volume. It needs 3 callbacks. The blocked then unblocked mechanic. The keepsake sentence. The scrubbed 72 hours of adjacent content on his side from the deletion trail. If the night were what the complex headline argues, none of those 3 artifacts would exist. Because a Tuesday doesn't produce a firewall, a Tuesday doesn't produce keepsake vocabulary, and a Tuesday doesn't produce a maternity blackout on the timeline of a man whose whole feed had been maternity first for 8 weeks. The Tuesday frame is intellectually generous. It's also the frame that requires the most receipts to be ignored to hold up. Which brings us to the part of this where I stop laying exhibits and tell you what I actually think is happening. The mainstream read is nostalgia content, 2 X's with chemistry, farming clips, harmless. And look, I understand why that read is comfortable. It lets everybody enjoy the stream without asking what the stream cost, but follow the incentives instead of the vibes, and a different picture snaps into focus. Blueface came home 9 months ago to a music career that had been frozen mid-sentence. Whatever momentum Thoshiana bought him, for years of legal trouble spent it. What does he actually have that's appreciating? Not the catalog, the drama. The livestream economy figured out years ago what the music industry is still catching up to. These 2 people, in a room, doing nothing in particular, outdraw almost anything either of them does alone. 21,500 concurrent viewers on her side alone, per her own call-out on the stream, before you count his channel, the clip channels, the re-uploads. The more wasn't a date and it wasn't nostalgia. It was inventory replenishment for the most reliable product either of them has ever sold, unresolved tension. Now, before the comments light up, that is not the same as saying it's fake. That's the lazy version of this take, and I'm not making it. The blocking confession wasn't scripted. You don't script don't pick up as a contact name, that's too weird and too specific. The play sparring argument about who hit who last time wasn't scripted either. That was two people relitigating an actual incident as foreplay, which is a whole separate problem we could do a full case on. No, the tension is real. That's exactly what makes it valuable. Genuine unresolved feelings, professionally harvested. The most honest product in the creator economy is authentic dysfunction on a schedule. And Chrisean's position in this is more calculated than her side of the internet wants to admit. I say that as somebody who's been rooting for the boxing pivot since it was announced. Watch what she actually did this week. She got the Blueface impressions, the single biggest audience injection available to her, at the exact moment her fight promotion needed awareness. She announced the date herself, on the biggest organic stage she'll get all cycle. She controlled every hostile thread in the chat, and she was wheels up before midnight, back in Baltimore by training. If that's a relapse, it's the most professionally productive relapse ever broadcast. Here's the sharpened version, and I'm not going to soften it. The person this stream hurts isn't her. It's the woman at home counting down to a due date, watching her boyfriend's ex get a cross-country flight fit run 3 days before her own maternity posts. There is no framing of this night, not co-parenting, not content, not nothing, where Nevaeh Akira isn't the one absorbing the cost. And the fact that every frame of the coverage, all 3 of them, quietly edited her out of the story, that's the tell of the whole week. The story only works if the pregnant girlfriend is cropped out of it. So the culture cropped her. As for Blueface himself, a man 9 months out of custody, on paper, presumably with conditions, his smartest play would be 18 months of visible, boring stability. Instead, he's co-starring in the Chaos franchise again, because boring doesn't trend and stability doesn't clip. Somebody around him should be doing that math out loud. Apparently nobody is. Remember what we said when he first came home and the first wave of streams started? This was always the trajectory. Yeah. Hi. The night wasn't a couple shopping. It was a proof of concept. The product works. The demand is intact. The audience showed up on a week's notice in a dying mall at closing time. That's what $4,552 actually bought. Not outfits. Confirmation. Let me stack a few more defense beats to that thesis, because the mainstream read has a lot of soft armor and I don't want to leave it standing. The keepsake sentence is defense 1. It turns the entire retail transaction from a shopping run into a memory preservation ritual, and a ritual is not a Tuesday. The block then unblock mechanic is defense 2, because firewalls don't get built for content, they get built for people. The WAC 100 clubhouse phrase, the numbers don't argue with themselves, is defense 3, a manager acknowledging the demand curve at a volume no manager acknowledges an accident at. The scrubbed 72 hours of Nevaeh-adjacent content is defense 4, because you don't quietly clear the timeline around a night that meant nothing. And the audio in the store, Thoshiana cycling through the overhead at exactly the moment Chrisean is doing the disciplined speech, is defense 5, because coincidence has a smell, and this room did not smell like coincidence, even if we're not allowed to use the word. Now the jabs, one at a time, and I'm going to vary the temperature on purpose. Jab 1, cutting. For a man on post-release supervision, buying his $650 sunglasses in a store that may or may not carry his name on some California LLC filing is not the discretion strategy his lawyer would have drafted. Jab 2, dry. The audit of the receipt was the most disciplined thing Blueface did on that stream, and it took a $52 tax line to bring it out of him. Jab 3, almost sympathetic. Chrisean is one Baltimore camp cycle away from being taken seriously as a professional fighter, and every one of these streams is a small, expensive rope pulling her back toward the character she's trying to grow out of. Jab 4, Absurdist. An entire 6-minute segment of the stream was a doctor pitching alkaline water in a menswear aisle to a couple whose combined pending litigation calendar could fund the man's whole hydration line. Jab 5, cutting again. Rolling Stone's aggregate coverage of Blueface post-release calendar lists 9 major stream events, 4 co-appearances with Chrisean, and 0 released studio tracks since November, a ratio that is not a comeback, it's a residency. And Jab 6, the quiet one. The doctor at the register, the tax waiver at 40 seconds, the Thoshiana on the overhead, and the part ownership claim all lining up in the same 60 minutes is either the most convenient hour of Blueface calendar year or the most exposed one, and either read costs him something. One more layer to the mainstream staging, because I want to be explicit about which room built the softer version of this story. Billboard's Music News vertical ran a piece 2 days after the stream that opened with the boxing rollout, credited XRumble for the marketing bump, and framed the mall night as a rare co-branded moment between 2 independent artists managing separate careers. 2 independent artists managing separate careers. That is the legally clean version of what the phone screen actually said. Billboard doesn't do that framing by accident. Somebody's PR team called somebody's editorial desk between the stream and the byline, and the language got polished on the way to press. So what happens from here? 3 directions, and I'll put a date on at least one of them. Don't be surprised if the September 19th fight becomes the most watched event XRumble has ever put on, not because of the opponent, whoever ends up across the ring, but because of exactly this. Every clip from that mall is top of funnel for that fight now. The promotion should be cutting the contact name clip into a promo package by next week. If their marketing team has a pulse, they already have. Watch what happens to ticket and stream interest in the 2 weeks after this stream finishes circulating. The fight was already interesting. Now it's a referendum, the camp discipline versus the chaos pipeline, in public, with a scoreboard. And here's the falsifiable one. If she wins on September 19th, watch how fast the boxing saved her narrative becomes the official story of this exact mall trip. It'll get retconned as a one-night lap she trained through. If she loses, this stream becomes the exhibit. Either way, this footage is getting entered into evidence by somebody. The cascade on scenario 1 runs deeper than the headline. Watch how the presser choreography breaks. Once fight week hits, expect a media day where Chrisean is asked about the mall stream on camera by at least 2 outlets, 1 hostile, 1 friendly, and the answer she gives becomes a bigger clip than the mall itself. By the 12th, the entire fight media apparatus will be running double coverage, the sports story on the front page, the Blueface story in the research sidebar, both feeding each other. Don't be shocked when a rival promoter, the folks at Misfits Boxing have historically been the fastest on the counter-offer, floats a post-September 19 offer publicly to hijack whichever narrative wins that night. And the secondary failure prediction the mainstream is going to miss, XRumble's own social will over-index on the mall clips in the run-up, will get called out for it by boxing purists, and will pivot too late to a pure sport frame in the final week, which will read as defensive and cost them a percentage of the neutral buys. The promotion is about to learn the difference between virality and credibility on the same 30-day cycle. The wild card nobody's pricing in, the baby, Nevaeh Akira's due date, per the coverage, is essentially now days, not months. The birth of his son is the one event on the calendar powerful enough to reset Blueface's entire public rotation. If he leans into it, hospital photos, dad content, a visible pivot, the Chrisean stream cycle gets interrupted by something that actually outranks it. If he doesn't, if the baby arrives and the streams continue unchanged, that silence will say more than any contact name ever could. The next 60 days tell you which man came home from those 21 months. The cascade on scenario 2 is where the personal ledger gets ugly. Watch how the announcement rolls out, or doesn't. If the birth gets a clean, dedicated post from Blueface with no Chrisean-adjacent activity for the surrounding 72 hours, that's a public choreography that says the team learned from this month. If instead the birth announcement lands in a joint stream, or arrives inside a life update segment that also mentions Chrisean's fight camp in the same breath, the calendar just told you Nevaeh's leverage inside her own relationship. Once the baby arrives, expect at least one Jaden Alexis appearance in the discourse. She's the mother of Blueface's 2 older children and has spoken publicly about the co-parenting dynamic multiple times this year, and her posture on the mall stream will set the tone for every mother figure in his orbit. By the 30-day mark, expect a shift in his stream cadence one way or the other. Nobody home from prison stays on this exact posting rhythm through a newborn. And the secondary failure prediction. If WAC 100 doesn't get a father-first content pivot into the next 45 days of the rollout, the room around Blueface is going to lose a sponsor tier it hasn't publicly announced yet. The family brand pipeline reads streams like this and quietly declines the offer. The next Cash App adjacent deal that doesn't materialize will be the receipt. And the residue, the 5U aftershock, is the normalization curve. 3 years ago, this night would have been a scandal. This week it's a vibe. Shopping content. A cute contact name moment. That's the arc of the entire saga in miniature. Every cycle, the chaos gets repackaged one step softer, monetized one step cleaner, questioned one step less. By the time Chrisean Jr. is old enough to search any of this, he'll find a fully edited, fully monetized, comment section-approved version of his parents' worst years, framed as a love story with a merchandise funnel. Somebody should be archiving the unedited version. The cascade on Scenario 3 is the one that keeps me quiet at the desk. By 2028, expect a family docuseries pitch. The format is too obvious for a room like WAC 100's not to shop, and the platforms that pass on it in 2026 will bite in 2027 when the fight cycle matures. By 2029, expect a merchandise line built around the exact iconography of the toxicity, the contact name aesthetic, the receipt total aesthetic, the keepsake language pressed into hoodies. By 2031, expect a book, ghostwritten, of course, that reframes every documented incident as a chapter in a redemption arc. And the secondary failure prediction here is the child's own account. Once Chrisean Jr. hits an age where he has any social presence of his own, watch how fast the archive of his parents' streams gets curated for him, comments closed on the worst clips, cross-uploads quietly deleted, the don't pick up contact name era buried under family-first content. The next generation is about to inherit a scrub timeline, and the only people with the UN scrub version are strangers in comment sections who don't know they are the last living copy. Oh, and the contact name. J survives exactly as long as it's useful. Watch for the day it changes again. It'll trend before either of them confirms anything. It always does. You heard the read here first. And here's the microloop I planted earlier that I owe you a payoff on, the tax exemption, same one we did last time. The last time transaction is out there. Somebody has the receipt from whenever the previous visit was. If it surfaces, and it has both names on it, or one name and a date that maps to a prior public sighting, the store question is no longer a mystery, it's a paper trail. I already know what the reunion camp is about to type in the comments when that receipt drops. Type it anyway. I want to see the timeline of your read against mine. And that contract I mentioned up top, the timeline that stopped making sense, there it is. 9 months home, a baby days away, an ex flown in for one evening, and a receipt for $4,552 that needed a line item audit. The paper said what neither of them would. Nothing is closed. It's just pause between streams. You saw what you saw. If this is the read you came for, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, kill the bell silence. And if you've got the actual deal structure on that part ownership claim, the comments are right there. Next case is already in research. Court's adjourned.